Hello, I do believe we are live. Turn my speakers down a bit, as usual. I always forget. Good evening. Doesn't look like there's anybody watching, unfortunately. That's a shame. It'll be a very boring show if it's just me. Lorenz is here. He says, "Hey now, good to see you, mate." Yeah, just getting started. It'll be a very boring show if it's just me. Hang on. Okay, there we go. The laptop sprung into life and it shouldn't have done. Yes, you are indeed first. So, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. Bobby Booth is here. He's just popped in. So I'm just going to let people gradually drift in and then we'll make a start. I'm just in conversation with somebody right now. 1 second. Where's that? Beatrice is here. And she says, "Hey guys, how is everyone?" Yep, there's not very many people here so far. We've only got about 6 people here. But we are here, and that's the important thing. And it is very, very hot and humid in here. It's weather today. It's not actually thundered, but it's been feeling like it probably should all day. But it hasn't actually done anything. We've had quite a lot of rain, but no thunder. But it is so hot and humid. I mean, I'm sat here and I am roasting away. But yeah, it would be really nice if we have a nice big fat thunderstorm, but I don't think that's going to happen. So there we go. So I hope everyone is okay. Hope you've all had a good week. It's been a good one here. It's been a busy one. I'm flat out with mixing 2 records at the moment and just taken on a 3rd one today as well. So over the course of the next 2 months, I'm just going to be mixing every single day. Yeah, Bobby, you say it's hot here, but you got thunderstorms on the way. I'd love a thunderstorm right now, I tell you. We went out last night to friends of mine, friends of ours. They are twins, and they were celebrating their 40th birthday today, on yesterday. So it was a really good night out. So we took the kids as well. All of us went, whole family went, and we stayed out very, very late. And then my daughter decided she was going to be spectacularly sick everywhere. So, and that's been the story of today. Today has been clearing up vom day. So she's not very well. So consequently, both my kids are sleeping in mummy and daddy's bed with mummy at the moment, and I'm going to be sleeping on the sofa tonight because my job is going to be cleaning up vomit because my wife is working tomorrow. So there we go. That's my family story. Not very entertaining. Just Bob is here. He says, "Hello, Johnny and the Lipsters." Hey, Bob. How you doing? I hope you're well. We got 9 people here. Normally by this time we have a good few more, so it'd be nice if we get some more people in the room. If somebody could go share this around. I haven't had time to do hardly a thing, really, in terms of advertising this. I think I had like 2 minutes earlier in the day, and I put up an ad in the HST group, but I haven't done anything anywhere else. So if somebody could go and share this link somewhere on some of the other groups, that'd be great. Rick Gran is here. Good to see you, mate. He says, I'm here. Fantastic. So we've only just got started. We're only 6 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes into the show. So that's cool. And we'll get on to questions and talking point in just a minute. Once we've got a few more people in here. We're into double figures. Hooray. We've got 10 people here, which is very cool. So I hope everyone's having a good week and a good weekend. Mark Young is here. Good to see you, Mark. Welcome. Welcome to the mad world that is Johnny Lepson Studios and my Sunday night live show. So I am in the throes of, as I say, mixing 3 records at the same time at the moment. They're all completely different from each other. So I've got it mapped out over what days I'm doing what. So in the morning, I'm doing one record, which is a house record. And then in the afternoons, I'm mixing an acoustic folk kind of record. And then in the evenings, I'm mixing an instrumental record, which is, so it's all very varied at the moment. And so it doesn't really allow for a lot of time off at the moment. And of course, we are preparing to move as well. So we'll be out of this little small studio room in about 4 weeks' time. So I got a lot to do. Plus putting the finishing touches to the VIP lounge, which I'm going to be doing tomorrow morning with my good friend Rich Westfall. We're going to be working on the front end of it, the PayPal payment end of it, which hasn't been working for a wee while, and we think we've got it now. So we're going to be working on that tomorrow, and hopefully we're going to be launching this extremely soon. I know I keep saying we're going to be launching it soon, and I keep saying soon, and soon never seems to come. But every time I've been ready to launch it, we've hit upon a showstopper, and we've had to kind of like pull things back a little bit and go and make some repairs and tests and things and stuff. So, but it is going to be very, very cool. I'm already starting to put some content up into the VIP, ready for you guys, so that you've got some stuff to get your teeth into when you get there. And so it's going to be very cool. And when we launch, I will do a special live stream, an extended live stream, and I'll give you guys a guided tour around, so you know what it looks like. And so, you know, if you haven't actually joined, and when I launch it, nobody will have joined, but you'll get a chance to have a look around on the inside, so that you can go, hey, this is actually something I want to be a part of, or not. So Bobby Booth says, hopefully I'll be able to move into my new studio in about a month. Wow, Bobby, looks like you and I are going to be moving at the same time, buddy. That's cool. My good buddy Mike Neighbor is here, and he says, I'm loving it. I can actually play my guitar. Just so cool. And then he says hi. I am assuming, Mike, that you are referring to the fact that you are now the proud owner of Studio One 4. I'm sure that's the case, because you and I have been talking about that a little bit this afternoon. So yeah, so today has been a bit of a write-off of a day, really. I've had to stay indoors, mostly because of my daughter being unwell, and also because the weather just sucked. So we've been indoors all day, and my son has been looking after my daughter, and I've been looking after both of them and keeping them entertained. And so I've not been able to do any work really today. So this is my first work, really, is coming on the live stream and talking to you guys. So it's cool. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to do the show. We're back to single figures again. We dropped down to 9 viewers. But we're about 10 minutes into the show, so I think I'm going to make a start, and I've got a really itchy nose. Sorry, folks. I know it's very unsightly, me scratching my nose, but yeah, Bobby Booth is enjoying version 4 as well. And Deirdre says, well, it is catching. I have a home for sale as well. Wow, so everybody is moving. Well, I hope you're all moving to Edinburgh. That's all I can say. Wouldn't it be fantastic if we're all in the same neighborhood? That'd be great. We can go and hang out in each other's studios. Mike says the chord track is the most amazing thing ever. It most certainly is. I did a video on it earlier in the week, and was it in the week or was it the week before? It might have been the week before. Yeah, week before this week just gone. And it's extremely cool being able to change a chord that you've performed, that you've played, on your guitar or something like that, and just go, you know what? I'm not really sure that I should have played an E minor chord there. Maybe it should have been an A minor, or maybe it should have not been a minor chord at all. Let me try an A major chord or something. And you can do that with Chord Track. It's amazing. It's a very, very powerful songwriting and arranging tool. So, you can work out really quite complex ideas with it. At the moment, it only works with triads, so that's 3-note chords and 4-note chords. But I'm sure that in future versions, it will have a lot more in the way of extensions to, 7th chords, major 7th chords, 9ths, 11ths, 13ths, alterations to chords. I'm sure all of that will come in the course of the next few updates. And so hopefully by the time we get to the end of the 4.x series of Studio One, we will have something that is just mind-blowing. Just Bob says, I keep having to restart the broadcast, messing up on my end, trying to connect to TV, and my tablet isn't having it. Okay, well, I'm sorry about that. I don't think we've got an issue at this end. I'm just going to check my stream over here, and it looks pretty good. It's maybe freezing occasionally, but it looks pretty good. Let's see. Deirdre says, well, JL, it's your nose scratch it, and I wish I could visit any one of you guys. The talent here is awesome. Yeah, you guys are incredible. All you guys that come out to my live stream, you are an incredible bunch of guys and gals, and you're very talented. All of you, and you ask some of the best questions I think I've ever been asked. I do my Songwriting Simplified stream with Johnny on a Wednesday, and he asks me some great questions as well. But you guys on this stream ask some of the best questions, and I hope one day that I have, you've given me questions that I have to go and look up and research and stuff. That'd be awesome. Stephen Greenwood is here, and he says, hello, everyone, running a little bit late. Well, that's okay. We're only just really getting started. We're 13 minutes in, and I've just been waiting for the room to fill up a little bit before we get on. So, so last week, we did the next little bit of changing keys. So we did like changing from major key to major key a few weeks ago, and then last week we did minor keys, going to a minor key either from a major key or from another minor key, and that's a little bit more complicated because you have to alter the chords a little bit. You have to play a diminished chord for chord 2, and then a 7 chord for chord 5, but you really ought to be, having a little flat 9 in there as well. You don't have to, but the flat 9 can be a passing note in the melody. But it really works for getting from one minor key to another, or one major key to a minor key. Works really, really well, because what you're doing is you're giving the audience the accidentals for the new key, so that when they get to that new key, it's pretty seamless. So that's generally the idea. Man, my nose, it's so, it's weird. Really itchy and tingly at the moment. So Johnny Gibe has just arrived. He says, how about a 2 in a 4 or a 2, 5 or 6 to 4? Oh, you're talking about chord changes here, aren't you? And what we can do. Yeah, so let's get some Fender Rhodes going on here, because we like some Fender Rhodes. Fender Rhodes is always good, so let's go for... If you recognize the chord changes, let me know what that song is. Oh, it's a Chicago joke. Okay, that's fine. But good to see you, Johnny. Thanks for coming on the show. It's always good to have you here. Bobby says, I'm not talented, still learning. Bobby, stop lying. You are talented, and yes, we are all still learning. Even those of us that have been doing this for decades, we are still learning. The day I stop learning is the day that I go and shoot myself, to be honest. Because not learning is the height of arrogance. Saying, hey, I've arrived. I know everything there is to know about music. A, you're a liar. B, you're the most arrogant person in the business, and you need to go and flip burgers for 10 years. My opinion. So there you go. If you're not learning, that's bad. Or if you think you don't need to learn anything, that's shameful. Mark Young says Deacon Blue. Orange Shankman says Steely Dan. Mike Neighbor says Deacon Blues. Yes, it is Deacon Blues. You're quite correct. That's the intro. It's a beautiful little set of chord changes. Which I could go into, but it's essentially just essentially just a series of 2-5-1s. It's just that we use the bass note goes down in kind of like a descending semitone pattern. But here's the thing: is the first chord C major, then the second one is G, but with the third in the bass. Then we go to B flat, and then we go F with A in the bass. And then we go D major, A with C sharp, C major, G with B, and then that leads you to here, E flat. And when you get to that, when you get to that E7 sharp 9, everyone's expecting you to go there, you know. But you don't. You go. And I think, you know, for as much as you could probably sit down and work out exactly, you know, how all of those, you know, those chord changes are interrelated and stuff, actually, I think it's much more that it just sounds darn cool, to be honest. You know, have this little descending figure, and then transpose that up a tone. And then have this kind of like substitute here for chord 2, which is E flat here to E7 sharp 9. But then instead of going to A, you go to G. G6, in fact. It's not even G. There's G, it's G6. And then you're into the verse. So it's a bit of a funny one, that song. But anyway, that's kind of a little rabbit run, a little by the by there. Okay, so chord changes. What are the best set of chord changes and why? That's a big question that I ask myself regularly. What is the best set of chord changes and why do they work? Now, why is it that 1-6-2-5-1 works? And pretty much every pop song has been written using 1-6-2-5-1 or 1-6-4-5-1. Why is that works? And, you know, so many songs have been written around that. So let's take a 1-6-2-5-1. So C, A minor, D minor. Why is it that works? And why is it that so many songs are based around those set of chord changes? Well, it's because they all work together. They're all related to each other. So chord 1, and then we go into chord 6, which is A minor, which is the relative minor. But then if you go up 1, 2, 3, 4, you get to chord 2. And then if you go up again, 1, 2, 3, 4, you get to chord 5. So they are all related to each other, and that's what makes them work the best. So how do you break out of that and into something that is going to sound just as effective, but maybe doesn't use a 2 or a 6 or a 5? How do we do that? How do we make our chord changes sound much more interesting than just that? Well, this is where something called substitution comes in. What is substitution, I hear you ask? Well, it's just like it is on a soccer field. You want to get a fresh player on there. Maybe that player has been out there for 35 minutes. And so they're getting a little bit tired. And you want a fresh pair of legs in there to, go and get a goal. Let's say you haven't scored. You want to get the breakthrough before half time. So what do? You get a substitution on there. So what you want to do in soccer is you want to trade like for like, or at least as close to like for like. So you want to get your center forward off and have a center forward on your bench ready to go who can just slot into that position and off they go. That's the ideal. But in music, doesn't always work like that. So what you need is a set of skills that are shared between the player who's on the field and the player who's on the bench. You need to have something in common that they can both do that will make the substitution work. So how do we do this with chords? I think I said to you last week, there are two notes that are most important in any set of chord changes, and that is the third, be that a major or a minor third, and the seventh, be that either a major seventh or a flat seven. Those are the two most important notes you need in your chords, and of course your root note, which would be played by your bass player. So how does this work? So we want the root played by the bass, we want the third, and as I say, the seventh. So there's my flat seven, that makes C7. Now these notes here are a tritone and they resolve. So the seventh resolves downwards and the third resolves up. Okay, so that's going to lead to F. C7 always leads to F. Okay, it's just the inevitability of it. But what if we want to get away from this movement in the bass, which is boring, okay, and not very interesting to listen to? So what do we need to do? Here's what we need to do. We need to look at this C7 chord and look at these two notes here. What other chord contain a B flat and an E? What other chord contains those notes? So we need to find another chord that has a B flat and an E in it to make it work. Now the most logical one, believe it or not, is going to be a chord whose root is 3 whole tones away from that C. So if I count up 3 whole tones from C, so we get C, D, E, not F, but F sharp or G flat. And now you get the same effect. Okay? See how that works? So I'm going to alternate between C7 to F and then this G flat 7 to F. Okay, so C7 to F. Does exactly the same job. It resolves to where you want it to go every single time. Okay, so it works. And that is what we call tritonal substitution, because we're substituting a note that is 3 tones, hence the word tritone, away from the chord that it is substituting. All right, so we are replacing C7 with a chord that is 1, 1, 2, 3 whole tones away. So this F sharp 7 or G flat 7 is taking the place of my C7. Okay, so if I was to play a 2-5-1, normally in the key of F, I'd go G minor, C7, F, and we're there. All right? But what I can do, instead of avoiding this predictability thing, far too predictable. Let's use that that F sharp 7 instead. And it does the same job, okay? So how can I extend that a little bit? I can extend that by using another tritonal substitution into my chord 2. So instead of going 3, 6, 2, 5 or 6, 2, 5, so let's say instead of going A7, D7, G7, C, instead of doing that, so we're in the key of F. So let's stick with the key of F. So instead of going D minor, G minor, C7, F, sorry, D, G minor, C, F. Instead of doing that, which is still too predictable. Oh, thanks, Johnny. Appreciate that, mate. Instead of doing the D, let's find another chord that has, there's D7, there's D, there's F sharp, there's a third, and there's the C. So there we have D7. Let's find that tritone. So where is the tritone from D? All right, so we count up 3 whole tones in the bass. So we go D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and that will lead into my G minor chord. And then I do the same again. There's my F sharp 7, and now I'm in F again. So we're going. And before you know it, you just use a tritonal substitution twice, whichever way around you want to do it. So there you go. That's one way in which you can break up that predictability. All right. So going back to that little, I think somebody asked me about the little walking bass line that I was doing, where I was going. All I'm doing is like a little chromatic leading tone into each chord. So C, and then I'm going to chord 6, which is A. So I'm going C, A, D, G, C, and then I'm using the B flat as a little passing note into the A. So go, and then the C sharp, the third of the chord, is the passing note into the D, and then the A flat as a passing note, which also is the tritonal substitution, into G. So that's how I came up with that. So that's basically a little sequence of tritonal substitutions, but it's all kind of like being suggested by the bass part. So how can I extend this out? So what will substitute if we're back in the key of C? I know we kind of did the last example in the key of F. So let's do this one in the key of C. So there's my root chord. I would normally go to A7. And then I'd normally go to D7, to G7, to C, and I'd go round and round that. So which is fine, but it's a little bit boring. What can I do to break out of that using that tritonal substitution thing again? Okay, so we got C, then we're going to A. All right, let's count. There's my 7th and my 3rd. Let's count up those 3 tones. So going from A, 1, C sharp, and there it is. It's E flat. So E flat 7 is the tritonal substitution. All right, so instead of going, I'm going to go, and that will lead me into D nicely, and then I need one more. So what is going to be the substitution here? Now that we're on D7, count up those 3. So D, E, F sharp, G sharp, to G. Could do the G, don't have to. What would substitute for the G? Tritone away, of course. D flat 7. Okay, so if I play all of those chords together, and it totally works. Those chords totally work together. And you can extend that all out. So that gives you a little idea of, and you can do this in any style of music. You don't have to do this in jazz, okay? You don't have to do this in jazz. You can do this in any kind of music. You can do this in country music. You can do this in folk. You can do this in blues. You can do this in bluegrass. You can do this in whatever style of music you want. It's a case of how you do it. And if you're going to do it in country music, yeah, don't do it too often. Maybe a couple of times. Bobby says, you're a great teacher, but this is way over my head. See you later. Yeah, Bobby, you and I can go over this, okay? It's not a problem. I'm going to be putting some of this stuff into my VIP. So stuff like this tritonal substitution stuff, and then the key changing stuff is all going to go into the VIP. I've got PDF files that are going to go in there. So you'll be able to get access to all of that stuff. And you'll be able to go over in a lot more detail. Obviously, when I'm doing a live stream, I'm kind of limited to the amount of time I can devote to breaking it down. But seriously, Bobby, if you've got a question, ask it. If there's something you don't understand, ask it. It's fine. You know, rather than just kind of ducking out, feel free to just ask it. If you've got a question, if there's something you don't understand, go for it. Ask it here, and I'll break it down a little bit further. Same goes for everybody else. If you've got a question about what I've just demonstrated here, just ask it. Don't feel that you can't. Okay, if you're not understanding something, it's fine. We can go over that. So Johnny is here, and he's digging in and talking to people, which is great, mate. Appreciate that. Talking about chord track to make chord change, to make a set of chord changes. Yeah, it's so powerful. It's incredible. Rick says, please show that in a country style. Well, I don't play a lot of country music, but you could absolutely do it in a country style. If you have something like Band in a Box, you can totally go and put these chord changes into Band in a Box and then play around with different styles and hear it in different styles. You could hear it in Latin style. You could hear it in a country style. You know, like even like a minor 2-5-1, you know, you could a little bit of a Latin style here. And then working our way back. All right, so it totally works in a whole range of styles. Okay, let's see. Yeah, oh no, not Band in a Box. Yeah, yeah, Band in a Box is actually good. I'm not against Band in a Box. I just don't think you should use it to just spit out your songs. Really, to be honest, just kind of like input the chord changes and then, you know, it's like the equivalent of just, you know, typing something in and then hitting print. Yeah, not really a fan of that idea. However, if you want to try something out, if you want to see how something would sound in a particular style for experimentation purposes, then Band in a Box does a really good job. And also, if you want to use it for practice, I use Band in a Box for practicing improvisation. I challenge myself. I put in all sorts of weird and funky substitution chords into Band in a Box, and I just gradually crank up the tempo. So I'll start at like a nice sort of 90, maybe 100 beats a minute. And I'm just going to go around this set of maybe 16 bar set of chord changes. And I'll improvise over them. And as soon as I start getting comfortable, I then ratchet up the tempo. And I'll keep doing, and when I'm comfortable with that, I'll ratchet up some more. And I aim to try and get up to about 230, 240, 250 beats a minute. And then kind of like, you know, the fingers tend to really get moving when you get into that kind of tempo. But yeah, so Band in a Box is great for doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, otherwise, no, it's not a DAW. It's not really that kind of thing. What's that is being seconded here? Rick Gran. Have you ever thought about offering a basic music theory course for us amateurs starting from scratch and building from that? Yeah, that is one of the things that's going to be in my VIP membership. Believe it or not. Yep, there's going to be a couple of music theory classes that are going to go up in there. And yes, I am going to break things down to bare bone basics and take you all the way through to advanced stuff like tritonal substitution and basic concepts like why major and minor chords are important and why and when you should use them. Okay, man, my nose. I can't understand why my nose is so itchy today. And I don't get hay fever, so I don't know why. But Rick, that is a great question, and Bobby Booth is seconding that. So yeah, so there is some stuff that I'm working on that's going to go up into my VIP. Mike says I can actually play my guitar parts because of the chord track. It's my ability to change audio. Yes, that's really cool. You know, if there are certain chords or playing in a certain key that you couldn't do on a guitar, just your chops on the guitar mean that you can't do that. Maybe, you know, playing in B flat is just something you can't do. It's just something you've not learned. You've not you don't understand, how that works on the guitar, but you know how to play it in A. Well, that's great because you can play it in A and then you can use the chord track to transpose that. Rick says, any possibility you can make that part of JG's Pivot Share site membership that would make it a one-stop shop site for me? Well, I mean, Johnny and I this is kind of where we both have our different businesses. He has his, I have mine. But I'm sure, at some point we could do that. I'd have to have a bit more of an in-depth chat with Johnny about that and come up with something. But yeah, my intention is that my music theory course is going to go up on my VIP when that is ready to launch. And yeah, certainly, Johnny, we can talk about that and see what we can come up with. Because, both of us have to make money. So yeah, so that's all cool. All right, so let's get into your questions, and we can talk about the tritonal substitution stuff. If you've not understood that, that's fine. I can break that down even more if you would like, or we can talk about other stuff to do with songwriting, to do with mixing, mastering, arranging, composing, you name it, we can talk about it. We've got about another 25 minutes, and we can go into your questions. So let's have them, guys. Now, there is a delay on the chat of maybe about a couple of minutes, so type quickly, please. But yeah, I've got a good few things that are going to be exclusive to my VIP. I got some really good ideas, some really cool stuff going there. Do tritonal substitutions work well on guitar? Yeah, they work well on any instrument. On a guitar, you may have to voice the chords a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, the most important thing of any chord is the third and the seventh, and the bass note. If you're a solo guitar player, you'll need to be able to play the bass note. But if you're not, if you've got a bass player, then really the two most important notes are the third and the seventh, and everything else is kind of non-essential additions to the chord. So yeah, it does work on guitar. In fact, I can show you, because I have my trusty Ibanez AGR 70. Yes, I think I showed it on the Songwriting Simplified. Yeah, I think I did. So what were the chords I was playing? I was playing a C. So let's go for C13. So that'd be here. To A13. To D. To G. G13, sorry. So So those are kind of like the chords I was playing earlier. So kind of like I was playing the C, the A, and then the D. Okay, and all of that. So if I was to substitute those, I'd be going C, lift up next so we can see the chords. That's going to be a little bit tricky. I'll try. So, and I'll try and push the mic a little bit out of the way. All right, so here is my, how am I going to do this? Okay, here we go. So here's my C chord. And then what I'm going to do, this is how I cheat on the guitar, because I'm not a guitar player. So as you can see, I'm missing out this string. I'm missing out the third string, and I'm barring across. And then I'm putting my little finger barring across these two upper strings here. And then I want to get that E flat chord, which is a tritone away from the A7. So I need to go up to here, and then the D7, and then the D flat 7. Yeah. Okay, and so Mr. Bass Player could easily be going, he could be easily going. And then you can do this. You can go. So you'd be focusing, if you had a bass player, you'd be focusing on the top 3 strings here, and leaving all the rest of your strings. Tune down a semitone. No, I'm not going to tune down a semitone, because, you know, then I'd be, I'd have the guitar pitched in a weird key, you know. That would be like, you know, a piano player having like a gear lever so that he can play in C even when everybody else is in E flat. That's just silly, to be honest. So I'm not going to tune the guitar. I'm going to I do have a problem with bar chords. Yeah, you just need to develop a little bit of pinch strength here between your thumb and your fingers, and you can always use your second finger over the top of your first finger to add a little bit of extra weight to it. All right, but if you've got a bass player, you don't need to worry about the bar chord at all. All right, I'm not used to playing the guitar at this angle, which is why I'm hitting strings I shouldn't be. Okay, so bass player would be playing everything else. And then all you're really worrying about is here. It's not really a bar chord, you're just sticking your fingers across it. Exotic Mad says Hendrix disagrees. Well, that's fine. That's fine, but I'm absolutely sure he learned to play his guitar in the proper tuning to start with, you know, standard tuning to start with. There are a plethora of different tunings you can put your guitar in. There's DADGAD, there's modal tuning, there's all sorts of funky tunings you can tune your guitar to, and that's all fine. Don't have a problem with that. But really, I'm not that convinced by tuning my guitar down a semitone so that I don't have to bar the chord. That to me sounds a little bit cheaty. I'd much rather learn how to play the guitar, you know, with bar chords where I need to. That's just my personal opinion. Just Bob says, so essentially what you're doing is just barring the middle section of a bar chord and allowing the lows for bass and highs for keyboard, limiting chord movements with your left hand. I'm not really sure what you mean there. The barring enables me to shift the 13th shape, which is essentially what I was playing, around the neck. So I can play this voicing. I can play this voicing, this C, B flat, E, and A voicing anywhere. It's exactly the same voicing. Whoops. Okay, so it just allows me to shift this voicing anywhere. So yeah, so that's what I would do. That's why I bar the chords, because otherwise you're gonna have to, you know, contort your hand into some weird and wacky shape to try and find those individual notes otherwise. Plethora, yes, it's a good word. Plethora. I believe it's a Greek word. Anyway, Keith tunes to open G sometimes. Yes, he does. And I know some blues guitarists who, you know, they kind of specialize in sort of Mississippi Delta style blues, and they'll play dadgad or drop D pretty regularly, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. Didi says that's a lot. The notes sounded the same. I'm not sure what that means, but just Bob, that is a really good question about, you know, kind of like what the barring does. The barring just means I have a movable shape. That means I'm not having to kind of like play one shape, then try and find a different one over here, then another one over here, then another one over here on the neck of the guitar. I can pretty much just move the same voicing up and down the neck. Essentially, what barring does is it shortens the neck of the guitar temporarily. You know, if you imagine the guitar from here downwards, as soon as you put a bar across there, you're temporarily putting that guitar into the key of F, and then every time you move that bar up a semitone, you're temporarily putting the guitar into that key. Pretty much like a capo, except it's just with one finger and you're doing it temporarily. I mean, you're not going to play a chord, you're not going to put a capo on, play the chord, take the capo off, move it, and then play the next chord, because by the time you've done that, everybody's into the third verse of the song. Sounds like one of the strings out of tune to me. Yes, it is. My G string, not my G string, my B string is a little flat. But yeah, that's just because I haven't played it all day, and it's actually really quite hot in here. So the strings have probably gone out of tune because of that. Yeah, if you're playing in a particular key, if you're playing in B flat for the whole song, then yes. You know, if you don't want to play lots of bar chords, then put a capo on. Absolutely. Just make sure the capo doesn't apply too much pressure, and make sure that the capo is absolutely straight, so you're not mucking up the intonation. That's all I would say. Just Bob says cherry picking the middle notes to chord and not put hand in weird configurations and letting the bass player play lower notes to fill in the sound, as with keyboards. Yeah. Yeah, if I was a solo guitar player, I would be playing the bar chords so that I can play the bass note. If I was already playing with a bass player and a piano player, then really I'm just going to pick out the important things like the 3rd, the 7th, and the 13th. So I'd be playing this on the guitar. You know, I'd be playing that a lot. In fact, you can do that. And no, I'm not going to bother to tune up the guitar just now because it will go straight out of tune. So, yeah. All right, so you know, and that means I'm not having to bar all the way across and play this. Although sometimes I like to bar. Sometimes I like to bar. But yeah, if you're not used to barring, you're going to get a sore wrist. So I would say make sure you look after your wrist and look after these tendons here. If it starts to hurt, stop doing it and relax. All right, so I hope that helps. Chris says, is that horns are arranged? The 7 and the 13th? How is that how horns are arranged? It could be how horns are arranged. You might want to do that. The 3rd, the 7th, and the 13th. Yeah, maybe. I like the fact you used Roman numerals there, Chris. I had to count them for a minute. But yeah, you might have like a trumpet, alto, tenor, maybe. And maybe maybe you might stick a 9th in there as well. So you could have the 13th at the top with the trumpet, and then have the alto play the E, and then maybe your trombone play the D, and your tenor sax at the bottom playing the B flat. You could do something like that. Yeah, for sure you could do something like that. Or you could completely rearrange that and have, I don't know, you could have the 7th at the top, you could have the 7th at the top, the 13th right next to it, and then the E, and then the D, and then your bass player play down here. Kind of a spikier, bit of a spikier voicing, so maybe kind of resolve that 13th down to the G. So kind of like use that as a temporary dissonance. Take Tower of Power, for instance. Is there any typical horn arrangement parts? Yeah, they are maybe to a degree formulaic. There are certain riffs that are essential to funk music that you would write for your horn section. But not always. Horn arranging for that style of music tends to be pretty complex, and tends to not always be chord based, as in they're playing block chords. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they might be playing something much funkier, like or something like that, or something like that, so they might be playing a unison line together, or they might be playing pretty spiky little stabs, like I don't know, they might be playing something like this. Something like that, maybe. You guys are talking about tears in tendons. Well, you know what? I'll tell you a guitar player who is very limited physically as to what he could do. Django Reinhardt. If you've ever heard of him, he was a gypsy jazz guitarist in the 30s and early 40s. And he was also, I believe he was also a carpenter by trade. And he had an accident with a woodcutter, a jigsaw, I think it was. And he ended up only having these 2 fingers and his thumb left. So what did he do? He worked out how to play his entire guitar using these 2 fingers. And he played some of the most complex improvisations that were, he pioneered a lot of some of the germinal ideas that influenced Charlie Parker a lot, and maybe formed some of the basis of bebop, because he certainly had a bit of an influence on a very young Charlie Parker. because he would have heard Django Reinhardt and Stefan Grappelli on the radio when he was a kid, and that sound would have influenced him quite a lot. So Django Reinhardt, able to play unbelievably fast improvisations on the guitar with 2 fingers. So there you go. Even if you've got a tear, that means you can't really work these 2 fingers too well. That's okay. Accept your limitation, and be creative with it. Don't allow the limitation to stop you. Don't allow the limitation to hold you back. Be creative within that limitation. That's what Django Reinhardt did, and that's what made him such a successful and such a pioneering guitarist. He developed, guitar techniques that had never really been thought of, and now everybody accepts those as standard. I know for sure that Django Reinhardt influenced Charlie Christian, and Charlie Christian influenced a lot of great guitar players, including Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix would cite Charlie Christian as one of his earliest guitar influences. But I also know that Jimi Hendrix would also cite John Coltrane as one of his influences, certainly in terms of improvisation. He learned to improvise by listening to Coltrane. So, and Miles Davis was a very big Jimi Hendrix fan. I believe they met. They might have even met at the Isle of Wight Jazz Festival, I think, is where they first encountered each other. And I think they might have even jammed together. There are recordings floating about somewhere. Some bootlegger probably has them. So bar chords might be a problem for some of you. So leave out the unessential notes and just play the essential ones. The 3rd and the 7th is those are the 2 most important chords. If all you've got is the most important notes of the chord, if all you've got is 2 fingers, you're going to play that 7th and that 3rd, and you're going to move those about. And you're going to create something unique that nobody else is doing. So there you go. So I hope that kind of helps. We're running out of time, guys. We've got maybe about 5 or so minutes left. But yes, you guys have asked, and there will most certainly be a couple of music theory classes in my VIP. As I say, we're perilously close to actually launching this thing now. It's taken us like months, months to get it running. I was hoping that we could have had it live by now, maybe way back at the start of March, I was hoping, but as I say, we hit a bit of a major showstopper, which we're trying to sort out. We think we've broken the back of it, so we think we can actually go ahead and get it going now. So Bobby says that helps a whole lot. Yeah, I hope it does. Hope it does. Some of us just can't play. You know what? You guys like to talk yourselves down, don't you? I never had any guitar lessons ever. I never had any piano lessons ever. I never had any drum lessons ever. Nobody taught me music theory. Nobody taught me harmony. To be honest, nobody taught me mixing. I learned it because I just sat and watched. When I was house drummer in a studio, I would have been about 14 years old, and I was house drummer in a studio. And the studio that I was working in had a beautiful SSL E console. It was beautiful, sounded wonderful. And I just used to sit and watch the chief engineer at work. When I was not in the drum booth, I would be in the studio, in the control room, watching him at work, watching him EQ, watching him compress, and listening to the sound, listening to the changes that he was making to the sound. And it really, that really taught me loads. And then, by the time I was a few years past, I was about maybe 17, 18. I started doing mixes in that studio. So, I wasn't just playing drums in the drum booth. I was mixing as well on that SSL console. And that's where I learned. I learned from watching these guys and just copying and seeing what they did. And as for piano, I just sat down at a piano and I listened to records and tried to pick out what I was hearing on the records. And you know, so I listened to Steely Dan records like what I started with. This is the day of the expanding man. You know, I just sat down and listened to those records and started trying to figure out what they were doing on the Fender Rhodes that we had. When I was a kid, we had a Mark II Fender Rhodes in the lounge, which is why, when I could, I got hold of one, a Mark V. So, so that's how I learned. And, you know, working stuff out, listening, and trying to figure things out. That's how I landed on trisonal substitution. I happened upon that just by accident. And I worked out, oh, it's 3 tones. You know, 1, 2, 3 tones from here to here. And I thought, well, 3 tones, try triple tone. I used to call it triple tone, and then somebody said, hey, actually what you're doing there is tritonal. It's not triple tone, it's tritone. It's 3 tones. I was like, oh, okay. And so, you know, that's how I learned that stuff, and how I learned 251. You know, I worked stuff out. I worked out how chords relate to each other by trying them out and working out what didn't work. And once I'd worked out what didn't work, I was left with what does work. And, you know, then I would get to those that don't work later on, which is what I did. So I hope that helps, guys. Rick says, one reason I started using Studio One was that I could do 1 chord at a time. I can build from there. I have wrist arthritis in both wrists. Ouch. Not complaining, just adjusting. Yeah, one of the great things about a DAW is that you can literally just play a chord, stop the tape, virtual tape, set your hand to do the next one, punch it in. Do the next one, punch that one in. Do the next one, punch that one in. And then with a little bit of, you know, jiggery pokery and editing, you can make it sound utterly seamless and make yourself sound like a fantastic rhythm guitar player. That's how all the guitar parts were done on my EP, my Belonging to Tomorrow EP. That was all me playing this guitar. I just, you know, I would play a bit and then stop, and then play the next bit and then stop. Chris says, I'll give the horn parts a go. May I send you an MP3 to give a listen? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Just email it to johnny@johnnyliptonstudios.co.uk. And I'll give that a listen too. Yeah. Horn writing is a tricky business, my friend. But you can make it sound really, really cool with a little bit of know-how and a lot of listening. Really, the best way to learn how to write for a horn section is to listen to great horn sections and great arrangements written for them. So, you know, listen to the Steely Dan horn section, listen to Tower of Power, listen to Earth, Wind and Fire, listen to Chicago, and all those bands that have great horn sections. Listen to how they work. Listen to the Brecker Brothers. You know, the early Brecker Brothers records, you know, the late 70s, early 80s Brecker Brothers records. Go and listen to those, particularly like, let me think. Don't Stop the Music is a good record to listen to. Strap Hanging is another really good one that you can dig yourself into, because that horn section is Michael and Randy Brecker plus David Sanborn and Barry Rogers on trombone. So you got, like, you know, you've got your classic horn section right there. Trumpet, tenor sax, alto sax, and trombone, and it's just glorious, the horn writing for those. Elvis, yeah, he did have a great horn section in the late 70s, I should say, the early 70s, kind of the end of his the end of his life, he had a really good horn section, and he had a great drummer with him at that time as well. He had a very young Peter Erskine occasionally played with him. And who else? Who else played with him? Drummer Harvey Mason, very young Harvey Mason played with him. Trying to think. This guy's name escapes my memory for a minute. Bernard Purdie. Bernard Purdie played with Elvis as well. Mind you, Bernard Purdie has played on pretty much every great record that's ever been made. So there we go. Mike says, thanks, Johnny. I'm going to go play now. Good. And he says, talk to you soon. Good night, everybody. Yeah, Just Bob says, hit the like button. Yeah, I'd appreciate it if you could do that. And that's it. We're pretty much 6 or 7 minutes over the end of the show. So I hope you found it useful and helpful. Bobby and anybody else, if you've got any questions on the tritonal substitution chord stuff that I was doing over here, if you've got any questions about that, email me. There is no question that is a dumb question. There is no question that's a daft question. If you've got to, even if you have not really understood it at a basic level, that's fine. Drop me an email at johnny@johnnylipshamstudios.co.uk, and I will send you an answer. I will either answer it with something written in a written reply, or I will make you a little video that will help you. And as I say, VIP coming very soon. And when that comes, there will be music theory classes in there for you for beginners, intermediates, and advanced. So you can get into all aspects of music theory, in all aspects of harmony, which is going to be very, very important for not only your songwriting, but your arranging and also your mixing, funnily enough. So there we go. I hope you found it helpful, guys, and I will see you on Wednesday night over on Johnny Gives' YouTube channel for Songwriting Simplified. We've kind of missed a couple recently, but Johnny and I are going to really hit our strides over the course of the next few weeks. So we will see you then. Take care. Bye for now.